Hi everyone, my name's Hannah and today I'm going to be just talking a little bit about the LoTI framework for innovative teaching. So this is the LoTI framework, just kind of the overlay of what it looks like. I like to think of it as a ladder that has rungs and you're kind of walking up those rungs. So the goal is here to reach LoTI level 6, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. So level 0 is actually non-use. This just means that the teacher is not teaching or instructing based off of any standards. So it's really not promoting any purposeful learning. In the picture, I tried to just display that with a lot of students falling asleep because there's no engagement here, there's no active learning occurring. Number 1 is awareness. So this is really just teacher directed and the teacher is just instructing the class all of the information. So if you think of a lecture, that's what this is. It can be students raising their hands, however, it often just leads to students being bored. Level 2 is exploration. This is where you can think of maybe past experiences of creating a Google Slides where you just Googled the information, copy and pasted it onto a slideshow, and then presented it to your class. However, you might not have learned any of that information. It's already probably forgotten. And so in this example, it's really not higher level thinking skills here. If you're thinking of Bloom's taxonomy, it's really teacher directed, meaning that the teacher kind of gives a rubric right before the lesson and says exactly what they need to do in their keynote, what information they're looking for, and what they should have included to get a certain grade. Level 3 is infusion. So this has higher level thinking skills. So just looking at Bloom's taxonomy on the right there. It's still teacher directed though. The biggest part about this that I don't love of this level is that there's no real world applications. So it's individual learning occurring, but the students aren't using any applications from the outside world to enhance that learning or make it interesting for the individual student. So right now we're halfway through it, just keep going kind of up there. We're going to start getting into more of the student-directed and problem-based learning. So level 4 has 2 parts to it. Real world applications kind of start coming into play here. So one lab that I thought of right away was a strawberry DNA lab, where you're extracting DNA out of strawberries, and then you can talk about how you know that that's the DNA, things like that. You can have really good discussions about it, and it also applies to all of our students' lives because they all have DNA. It starts to be really inquiry-based here. So when I was given this lab, it was just really laid out for me. I had all the steps, all of my methods and processes already thought out, but this level is talking about where you can tell the students what they need to achieve, what the objective of the lesson is right away, but they need to figure out how to reach that objective. They can Google maybe how to extract DNA out of a strawberry because they might not know, but I would definitely use that for an older age group, just because the younger age groups still might need that direct instruction on what to do. LoTI level 5. This level is expansion, so this is where you really start to create a separation between the bottom of the ladder. And so what I mean by that is that the students' ideas are extended past the classroom at this point. So perhaps a student is interested in being an accountant. Maybe a project for them is to actually go talk to an accountant that's local, talk about how they got to be in that career, things and tips about that career, and then come back to the classroom and share what you learned and why that's important for your education. So possibly a class that could be for is like a college preparatory course if you have that at your school. For me, in a science classroom, I would definitely use this for more experience-based approaches to science. So maybe having some mechanical engineers come in, showing the students little things that they couldn't do already that maybe they didn't know, such as taking apart computers, looking for different circuits, trying to put the computer back together and get it to work. So things like that where the resources for it hopefully would be available to the school, but if they're not, they could be found relatively cheap, and it's still integrating a lot of technology into the classroom. Level 6 is refinement, so this is where you're using authentic problem solving outside of the classroom. So this is where you maybe identified a problem already, but now you're coming up with a solution to address that problem. There's a really seamless use of technology here, meaning that the teacher needs to be a professional at what they're doing. So if you are having some use of technology that you know how to work it and you know what to do if something's not going right, so that the students don't have to try and figure that out. That's why you're there. That's why you're a resource for them in that moment. This picture is a cool example of some students in Singapore. They are all really interested and displayed a huge interest in climate change in Singapore. They're coming up with their own inventions to kind of act against climate change, looking at actual computer models and mathematical models of how their inventions could help climate change. So definitely a cool thing that I will be using in my classroom as well. Bringing everything together from the LoTI framework, so it really talks about passive versus active use of technology. So I definitely would try to use the active use of technology as much as you possibly can. However, I can see examples of certain subjects where passive use is necessary as well, such as in English class. It would definitely be valid to write your essay on a laptop. I don't think that that's a very active use of the technology, but it's a very convenient use of the technology, and it's completely valid use of it. I would also just like to mention that the LoTI framework really pushes and emphasizes that it is learner-directed engagement in the classroom. So you are a resource for these students, however, the students are also a resource to one another, and I think that's something that is really overlooked in classrooms, but really important. These are all of my sources. Most of my sources are just picture links that I found, but the LoTI frameworks is where I found all the information of the LoTI steps and levels and kind of how it made sense to me. Thank you.